topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Powerful Business Strategies, where you will find out that everything you have ever learned about growing your business is wrong. Finally, a show where you'll learn the right way to grow your business by learning business and financial strategies that your competition isn't doing. And now, here is your host, President of Next Step CFO, Michael Barbarita. And joining Michael for today's show as an executive moderator is Chucky Obio.
Yes, this is Chucky, and I believe that gratitude is undefeated and growth is about the next step. It is an honor for me to moderate today's discussion with my good friend, Michael. Michael, how are you?
Excellent, Chucky. I apologize to everyone for being a minute late because of technical difficulties, but it just happens.
It's funny. Michael says technical difficulties. I say Michael was gathering the wisdom for today's show. A lot of wisdom right. We had to gather for today's show. Michael, really excited.
Well, thank you, Chucky. My name is Michael Barbarita, President of Next Step CFO. And Next Step CFO is a fractional CFO and strategic implementation firm. Our vision is to ensure overwhelmed business owners achieve the time freedom and consistent profits to build a legacy and the life they desire. Our mission is dedicated to guiding small business owners to leveraging their time, exploding their profits, and build a meaningful legacy. And the show Powerful Business Strategies and our book of the same name is a step toward accomplishing that mission and vision. And so with that, I'd like to hand it back to my co-author and moderator for the show today, Chucky Obio.
Michael, thank you. So really energized by today's episode. The title is Breaking Free from the Time Trap, the Counterintuitive Path to Time Freedom. Just really, really impactful stuff that Michael has put together for us. And Michael, as always, we'll have a number of questions from our audience. So we have business owners that listen coast to coast. So really, really enthused by the insights that we have. Just a quick disclaimer before we get started. Michael and I are both affiliated with a number of different organizations. I currently serve as the managing director of business development for Better Price, a global business-focused law firm. In addition to that, look, I find it an honor to collaborate with Michael to moderate business roundtables, as I said, coast to coast with small to medium-sized business owners. And we document the best practices from these roundtables. In fact, we've gathered the insights. We've put it together in a book called Powerful Business Strategies, which Michael referenced earlier. But please note that the views expressed on this show are our personal views based on successful experiences. And my mission as a fearless moderator is to ask the right questions to help you, the listener, learn the best strategies that the competition isn't doing. Michael, back over to you.
Thank you, Chucky. So today's topic is like the elephant in the room.
Yes.
Part of our vision is to ensure overwhelmed business owners achieve the time freedom. And so today, we're talking about something that hits home for every business owner that I know, and that Absolutely. Is being trapped by their business. And so last week, I was on this Zoom call with a client at 8:30 at night, and he looked exhausted. His daughter had a dance recital that evening that he missed again. Wow. And he turned to me and said, Michael, I'm working 70 hours a week. I make good money, but I never see my family. This is not what I signed up for when I started the business. Does that sound familiar? Well, maybe you're listening right now while driving between job sites, or maybe you're catching this show during the only 45 minutes you have free today. But and maybe you can't remember the last time you took a real vacation without your phone buzzing every hour with some crisis that only you can handle. Well, I've got some news for you. Everything, and I mean everything you've ever learned about time management is wrong, and I can prove it to you today. So, and did you know, by the way, another little fact, that working longer hours actually makes you less productive. Studies show that after 50 hours a week, productivity drops so sharply that someone working 70 hours gets the same amount done as someone working 55. So you're literally working an extra 15 hours for nothing.
Whoa.
But here's
Michael,
what's fascinating. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, yeah, we may want to repeat that. That's just so impactful.
Yeah.
Looks like we're getting some buzzes on that.
Yeah. So studies show that after 50 hours a week, productivity drops so sharply that someone working 70 hours gets the same amount done as someone working 55 hours. So
absolutely
you're literally working an extra 15 hours for nothing.
Wow.
And here's what's fascinating about that. Right now in your industry, there's probably a competitor who works 40 hours a week, takes regular vacations, makes more money than you do, same market, same business type, completely different life. So over the next 40 minutes, I'm going to share specific strategies that have helped CEOs transform their businesses from time-sucking monsters into well-oiled machines that can run without them. And the best part is these strategies, they work in every industry. And I'm going to present the strategies from these case studies that I've compiled. So grab a pen and paper because I'm about to share strategies that will completely change how you think about time and business. And if you're driving, don't worry, you can catch this episode again on our podcast at powerfulbusinessstrategies.com. So if you're just tuning in, we're talking about breaking free from being trapped by your business. And I promise to show you exactly how to do it. So let me tell you about Mike, a remodeling contractor. Mike was the classic superhero business owner. Every problem had to go through him. Every decision needed his approval. Every client wanted to deal directly with him. Does that sound familiar at all? So one day, Mike's wife asked him a question that hit him like a ton of bricks. She said, if you got sick tomorrow and couldn't work for a month, would your business survive? And Mike realized that the answer was no. He had built a business that was completely dependent on him, and it was slowly killing him. And here's the first major myth about time management that's keeping you trapped. Nobody can do it as well as I can. I hear this from business owners all the time, and you know what? They're right. Nobody will do it exactly like they do. But here's the million-dollar question. Does it really need to be done exactly like you do? So, let me show you something fascinating. We did an exercise with Mike where we tracked every minute of his time for a week. And what we discovered, out of 72 hours that he worked that week, only 8 hours were spent on tasks that truly required his unique skills and expertise. The rest, anyone could have done with proper training and systems. And what's really interesting is we discovered that Mike was spending 15 hours a week just answering basic questions from his team. Things like, what color should we use here? What supplier should we use for this? How should we handle this customer complaint? So he created what he called the decision tree system. For every type of decision that commonly came up, he created a simple flow chart. If A happens, do B. If C happens, do D. And he documented every decision Mike had to make over the past month and turned them into standard operating procedures. The results, those 15 hours of answering questions dropped down to 2 in the first week. But here's what's really great. His team started making better decisions than he did. Why? Because they were following a tested, proven system instead of making emotional decisions in that moment. You know how we business owners, when we're pressed for time, we just blurt out anything. And when afterwards you think, oh, did I really say that? Did I really answer that question that way? It's because we're under so much pressure that we get a question, we're just making a quick decision without even thinking. So let me share another example that will really drive us home. So Sarah owned a successful marketing agency. She was working 80 hours a week, missing her kids' events, and falling behind. Her biggest problem, she was the bottleneck in every project. She then implemented what she called the 80-20 time audit. And here's how that works. You track everything you do for 2 weeks, categorize each task by importance and dollar value, identify which 20% of activities produce 80% of your results. We'll get that in a minute. Create systems to delegate or eliminate the other 80%. Now, if this sounds familiar, this is exactly what we discussed on a previous show called the 7-step pathway to profit formula. In that show, you will learn the actual activities that make up the 20% that business owners should be doing that produces 80% of the results. So to go to that show, go to powerfulbusinessstrategies.com and look up the show titled 7-Step Pathway to Profit Formula. Because what Sarah discovered is that she was spending 30 hours a week on administrative tasks that a $20 an hour virtual assistant could handle. She was spending another 20 hours doing $50 an hour work when she could have been doing $500 per hour work. But here's the real kicker. She was so busy doing $20 per hour work that she was turning down high-value projects that only she could do. She was actually losing money by working more hours. She then created the value-based time management system, and every task in her business got assigned a dollar value. She wasn't allowed to do anything that could be done by someone she could hire for less than her target hourly rate. And so the results, within 60 days, her work week dropped from 80 hours to 45 hours. Her revenue increased by 40%. Her profit margins went from 25% to 42%, and she hasn't missed a single one of her kids' events since. But what's really powerful about that system is it forced her to create processes for everything because she couldn't touch the low-value tasks anymore. She had to document exactly how she wanted these things done. So let me give you another example. Tom runs a plumbing company, and like most service business owners, he was trapped by constant emergency calls, nights, weekends, vacations. It didn't matter. If a customer called with an emergency, he answered. He implemented what he called the Freedom Framework. First, he analyzed every after-hours call he'd received in the past year. And what he discovered is that 85% of these emergencies followed the same 5 patterns. Once he knew that, he could create systems to handle them without Tom's involvement. So it's just basically understanding what those emergencies were, those crazy after-hours calls, and then creating a system to handle it without his involvement, since 85% of the emergencies fell into 5 categories. But here's what's really interesting. He found that 40% of these emergencies could have been prevented with proper maintenance. So he created a VIP maintenance program that actually generated more revenue while reducing emergencies. And the key to all of this is understanding a crucial truth, that time freedom isn't about managing time better. It's about managing your business better. But let me show you something even more powerful than what Tom discovered at Tom's Plumbing Company. Remember how I mentioned that 40% of the emergencies could have been prevented? Well, here's exactly how he turned that problem into a profit center. He created what he called the Crisis Prevention Program. So instead of just responding to emergencies, he analyzed every emergency call from the past year and categorized them. And here's what he found. 25% of those calls were due to a lack of maintenance. 15 were due to outdated equipment. 35% of them were from minor issues that became major. And 25% were genuine emergencies. So he created a 3-tier maintenance program: Bronze, which was a basic annual inspection; Silver, which was quarterly maintenance plus priority service; Gold, which was monthly checkups, 24/7 emergency access and equipment monitoring. And then he priced the gold program at 3 times what bronze cost. What ended up happening is that over 40% of the customers opted for gold because he showed them how the actual cost of emergencies that they faced in the past year, and the program was cheaper than dealing with the emergencies. So that's why they jumped all over it. But here's what's really powerful about this system. It not only prevented emergencies, it created predictable revenue. It's the famine cycle of emergency calls. Tom now had steady recurring income, and his emergency calls dropped by 60%, and his profit margins went up by 45%. So, once again, it's how you run the business, not how you really manage your time. And let me share another quick example. So another Sarah, this time runs a successful dental practice, was constantly interrupted by staff asking basic questions about insurance coverage and treatment plans. And she was spending 2 to 3 hours every day just answering these questions. So she implemented what she called the knowledge capture system for 2 weeks. She recorded every single question that the staff asked. And then she created a searchable digital manual, quick reference guides, decision flow charts, video training modules, and weekly team training sessions. Now, the time invested up front, about 20 hours, the return on that investment is she got 15 hours back every week. A lot of these strategies do require upfront time. And I know people are going to say they don't have the time, but think about that leverage. 20 hours invested once saves 60 hours every month to eternity. Think about that, right? 20 hours that pays you back every month, 60 hours of time. That is really leverage.
Absolutely.
But here's the really important part. Her staff actually started making better decisions than they were when they were relying on her. Why? Because, well, they had clear, consistent guidelines instead of, catching her between patients when she was rushed and stressed. So when we come back from this 90-second break, we'll talk more about breaking free from your business because there's more case studies that I want to share.
Great.
Hey there, business owners. Let me ask you something. Are you tired of blending in with your competitors? Frustrated with slow growth and slim margins? Well, I've got news for you. Everything you've ever learned about growing your business is wrong. But don't worry. I'm here to let you in on a secret weapon, your position of market dominance. It's what sets you apart, makes you irreplaceable, and has customers lining up at your door. My name is Michael Barbarita from Next Step CFO. I know what you're thinking. Sounds great, Michael, but how do I find my position of market dominance? Well, that's exactly why we've created our game-changing implementation program called Next Step to Market Dominance. In just 90 days, we'll guide you step by step to a position of market dominance by uncovering your unique strengths that competitors can't touch, by crafting a message that resonates deeply with your ideal customer, by building a strategy that turns you into the go-to expert in your field. Now, this isn't theory. These are battle-tested strategies that have helped businesses like yours double, triple, and quadruple their revenue. Don't let another quarter go by struggling to stand out. It's time to dominate your market, period. Go to nextstepcfo.net/contact, fill out the form, and in the message section, put the word dominate. Or call us at 781-326-3822. That's nextstepcfo.net/contact, or call us at 781-326-3822.
So if you're just joining us, we're talking about breaking free from being trapped by your business. And I just shared how the Freedom Framework transformed a plumbing company. Now let me show you some more time freedom strategies. So let's talk about the second major myth that's keeping you trapped. And that is this: I need to be available all the time or I'll lose customers. Well, this is probably the biggest lie business owners tell themselves. let me give you an example. David owns an IT service company. And like most IT professionals, he was essentially handcuffed to his phone. Every client had his personal cell phone number, and they used it nights, weekends, and holidays. Didn't matter. His wife actually threatened to throw his phone in the swimming pool during their anniversary dinner. So, so he did something radical. He created what he called the client communication pyramid, and here's how that works. So, level 1 was for true emergencies, like for example, the system is down or there's a data breach. Level 2 was urgent, but not an emergency, like a slow printer or a slow system or other printing issues. Level 3, important, but not urgent. And that's like upgrades and some maintenance. Level 4, regular service requests, new user setup, password resets, and things like that. For each level, he created response time standards, communication protocols, escalation procedures, pricing tiers, and staff assignments. Was David nervous about implementing this? No question about it. He was convinced he'd lose clients. But what actually happened is his client satisfaction scores went up 40%. And why? Well, because now they had clear expectations and consistent service. But here's where it really gets interesting. He created a VIP service tier that actually charged more for that 24/7 access. And know how many clients opted in for it? Well, less than 10%.
Wow.
Turns out most clients didn't want to pay a premium price for off-hours access that they really needed. But they had his cell phone number and everything, so they just figured they would just call any time for any reason. So let me share another example that'll really drive this home. So Elaine runs a successful real estate agency. She was working 7 days a week because she believed clients would only work with an agent who was available 24/7. She then implemented what she called the presence paradox system. Here's the fascinating truth that she discovered. The harder you are to reach, the more valuable you become if you do it right. Let me say that again. The harder you are to reach, the more valuable you become if you do it right. And here's exactly how she structured her business. Monday through Thursday, full client meeting schedule. Friday, team meetings and strategy only. Saturday, Sunday, completely offline. All showings handled by team members. And she only attended final negotiations and closings. And what happened to her business is it tripled in 18 months. But here's what's really interesting. Her average sale price went up by 40%. Why? Because she positioned herself as a high-value advisor, not an always available showing agent and subservient vendor. So that was really something that hit home. And then she also created what she called the time multiplication system. And the principle of that was for every hour you spend, you should create at least 10 hours of value. So let me give you a specific example. So instead of doing individual buyer consultations, Elaine now does a monthly buyer success workshop. She spends 2 hours presenting to 20 potential buyers instead of 20 one-hour meetings. This is called the one-to-many model. But here's the genius part. She records these workshops. So now when a buyer comes in, they can watch the recorded workshop, complete a detailed questionnaire, meet with a team member for specific questions, and only meet with Elaine for the final strategy session. She turned 20 hours of meetings into 2 hours of high-value presentation time, plus created a valuable asset that she can use over and over. But the secret to making that work is you have to be willing to let go of the myth that being equals successful. In fact, we found it to be the opposite, where the most successful business owners are the ones who have the most free time. So let me give you another example. So Jim runs a manufacturing company and he works 75 hours a week and was proud of it. And he thought it showed dedication. But when he analyzed the company's performance, he found something shocking. The weeks he worked the most were the weeks his company performed the worst. So the weeks that he worked the most were the weeks the company performed the worst. And why? Well, because he was solving problems instead of preventing them. Putting out fires instead of fireproofing his business. He was the bottleneck that was actually causing many of the problems that he was working so hard to solve. So let me share something that might shock you about Sarah's real estate business transformation. Remember how I mentioned she completely stopped working weekends? Well, most real estate agents would say, that's impossible. That's when we see houses, right? Well, what she discovers when she actually analyzed her time, on average, she was spending 12 hours every weekend showing houses. But when she looked at her conversion rate, that is how many of these showings actually turned into sales, it was only 15%. That means 85% of her weekend time was spent with people who never bought a house from her. So what she did is she created what she called the qualified buyer system. So before anyone could schedule a showing, they had to watch her buyer education workshop, complete a detailed needs assessment, and meet with a mortgage broker, and also have a phone consultation with her buyer specialist. Was she worried this would drive people away? I guess she was definitely worried that it would drive people away, and she was very resistant to do it. But what actually happened is her showing to sale conversion rate jumped from 15% to 65% because she was only spending time with serious qualified buyers and not tire kickers. And so she started getting referrals from people who never even bought a house from her. Why? Because her education materials were so valuable, they recommended her to their friends, even though they weren't ready to buy themselves. Let me give you another example. And once again, this works in any industry. A custom cabinet maker who was working 90 hours a week because he was the only one who could design and price custom jobs. He was the bottleneck in the entire business. So he implemented what he called the knowledge transfer protocol. And here's how that works. So week one, he recorded every design decision that he made. Week two, he documented his pricing formulas. Week three, he created design templates and guidelines. Week four, he trained his team on the new system. Was it perfect right away? No, of course not. It's fascinating. After 6 weeks, his team was actually creating better designs than he did. Why? Because he focused solely on designs. While he had to been trying to design while also running the business, managing production, and handling customer service. So the results, his involvement in design work dropped from 40 hours a week to 5 hours with just final approvals. But the best part is his close rate on proposals went up by 40% because his team could turn them around in 48 hours instead of the 2 weeks it used to take him when everything had to go through him. So it's really fascinating how some of these business owners are able to just save an inordinate amount of time by managing their business better through systems and through things like recorded trainings. They don't have to keep repeating.
Exactly. Michael, so look, a couple of questions from the audience. Do you have 2 minutes to take on some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. So let's start with the first one. So why do you think business owners embrace the myths that you talked about? What is it about just the process of business ownership that allows those myths to develop in their minds?
Well, one of the main reason is that they truly believe that the business is their vision.
Yeah,
and there has to be some things done absolutely their way. This is a myth, though.
Yeah,
absolutely their way, or the business will disintegrate. And it's that mindset. It's a mindset thing too.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
you just think that only you can answer the question. Only you are dedicated to the business is another thing that's really a problem.
Mhm.
Where the business owner is so focused on the fact that he's the only one that really cares, really dedicated to the business, and no one else really cares. And I think that that's part of the reason why they try to handle everything, or they have to have things done a certain way, when in fact they don't have to be done that certain way.
Exactly.
And when somebody else handles it, it's just done more effectively and more efficiently.
For scalability purposes, for purposes of growth, right? I mean, it's just really interesting. So last question, and this is kind of a consolidation of a number of the discussion questions that we're getting here. The idea of using this as a way to reconnect to their original passion for the business or their number one goal. How do you see some of these exercises, some of the tools and techniques that you've talked about? Like, how do you see that connecting to the business owner's number one goal for their business?
Well, Chucky, in our analysis of people's number one goals, when we have a prospect, we always ask them what their number one goal is. And it always comes down to one of three things that they're looking for, or a combination of these three things that a business owner is looking for: time freedom, leveraged revenue. And what I mean by leveraged revenue is like one of the practitioners, I think it was the IT guy with the late night calls, he turned that into a revenue stream. And that's leveraged revenue because and he had it set up so he didn't have to take those calls. He had it set up so he was able to monetize a subscription program. That's leveraged revenue, where you generate revenue without the business owner having to do the work. And so time freedom, leveraged revenue, and the third thing was to build a legacy. So those are the three things that business owners usually have. Those one or more of those three things is their number one goal when it comes right down to it. They might say the number one goal is to do $1 million worth of sales, but that's really not their number one goal. That might be a conduit toward it, but it's not their number one goal.
Very helpful. Thanks, Michael.
And so when we come back after this 90-second break, we'll talk more about breaking free from your business.
Hey there, business owners. Let me ask you something. Are you tired of blending in with your competitors? Frustrated with slow growth and slim margins? Well, I've got news for you. Everything you've ever learned about growing your business is wrong. But don't worry. I'm here to let you in on a secret weapon: your position of market dominance. It's what sets you apart, makes you irreplaceable, and has customers lining up at your door. My name is Michael Barbarita from Next Step CFO. I know what you're thinking. Sounds great, Michael, but how do I find my position of market dominance? Well, that's exactly why we've created our game-changing implementation program called Next Step to Market Dominance. In just 90 days, we'll guide you step by step to a position of market dominance by uncovering your unique strengths that competitors can't touch, by crafting a message that resonates deeply with your ideal customer, by building a strategy that turns you into the go-to expert in your field. Now, this isn't theory. These are battle-tested strategies that have helped businesses like yours double, triple, and quadruple their revenue. Don't let another quarter go by struggling to stand out. It's time to dominate your market, period. Go to nextstepcfo.net/contact, fill out the form, and in the message section, put the word dominate. Or call us at 781-326-3822. That's nextstepcfo.net/contact, or call us at 781-326-3822.
So welcome back to Powerful Business Strategies. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about breaking free from being trapped by your business. And now I want to show you something that will completely change the way you think about your time. So let me introduce you to what I call the time freedom formula. This is the exact system a contractor used to go from working 70 hours a week to 40 while increasing his profit by 85%. And the best part is that this works for virtually any business. But let me first tell you about Bob. I'll cover that later on. But let me tell you about Bob, who runs a successful contracting business. Bob was the classic overwhelmed business owner, constantly running between job sites, putting out fires, dealing with employee issues, and trying to squeeze in estimates between all that chaos. Sound familiar? Well, here's the third major myth that was keeping Bob trapped. I need to work harder and everything will fall into place. Now, this is probably the most dangerous lie business owners tell themselves, and let me show you why. He did what he called a time to money analysis. For 1 week, he logged every single activity. This is so important, by the way. You got to log your activity just for a week or two. And he logged every single activity and he assigned it a dollar value. And here's what he discovered. 30% of his time was spent on $25 an hour tasks. 40% of the time was spent on $50 an hour tasks. 20% was spent on $100 an hour task, and only 5% was spent on $500 an hour tasks, which is the task that he should be doing, and he only spends 5% of his time on it. That 5% of his time that he spent on high-value activities generated 60% of his profit. Whoa. Think about that for a minute. Just 3.5 hours a week was producing most of his profit. So we implemented the mnemonic called AIDCO. And here are the 5 components of AIDCO. Number 1, A stands for automate. What can we systematize? 2, I stands for innovate. Solve any roadblocks. D stands for delegate. What can someone else do? C stands for cancel. What can we stop doing entirely? And O stands for outsource. If there are no employees that have the skill, then outsource that task. And let me show exactly how this worked for Bob. So automate. He created what he called decision trees for every common situation. Employee issues, here's the protocol. Customer complaint, here's the process. Material delay, here's the system. So instead of Bob having to handle every decision, his team had clear guidelines for handling 90% of the situations. Next, innovate. Bob was constantly innovating with all the new systems he created. And a lot of this process led to innovation. So as he was creating these systems, he discovered more and more opportunities to improve it through innovating. And then delegate. This is where most business owners get stuck. They say, well, nobody can do it as well as me. Here's what Bob's wife told Bob. If nobody can do it as well as you, you failed as a leader.
It's
okay,
true.
and that's an ouch, but it's true. And then cancel. He found he was doing free estimates for anyone who asked. 70% of these people were never going to buy. They were just price shopping. So he created a paid consultation model. If they hired him, the consultation fee was applied to the project. His time spent was on estimate. His time that he spent on estimates dropped by 65%, and he doubled his closing rate. So what he did, he actually charged. Everybody out there basically has all this free estimate stuff.
Yeah.
He actually charged for it because, first of all, his consultation during estimates was very valuable, and people were getting it for nothing. And a lot of people were getting it for nothing and then would run to the competitor and take that advice with a competitor. So that doesn't work. So and so he developed this system where he was able to monetize his estimating process. And certainly, if the prospect became a customer, then he would deduct it from the estimate. Outsource. He discovered that there were still tasks that he was doing that someone else could do. But there was no one in the organization with the organization skills needed. So he outsourced a virtual assistant in that particular case, where they needed admin skills, organization skills, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So part of Bob's innovation was creating what he called the skill transfer system. So for every task Bob handled, he documented the process step by step. He created training videos. He developed checklists. He established quality control metrics. He built feedback loops. And was it time consuming up front? Of course it was. Absolutely. Happened. Not within 90 days, his team was handling 80% of what used to land on his desk. And once Bob wasn't trapped doing $25 an hour work, he could focus on the $500 per hour activities, which was strategic planning, key client relationships, business development, process improvement, and team development. But here's what's really powerful about the system, because it creates what I call time momentum. Every hour you invest in systems and trainings gives you back multiple hours in the future. It's just leverage, tremendous leverage. And Bob used to spend 10 hours a week dealing with schedule changes and crew assignments. He created a simple scheduling system and trained his project manager to handle it. And that 10 hours became 30 minutes of review time. And the schedule actually got better because his project manager was focused solely on this task and could give it the attention it deserved, while Bob was trying to do 10,000 crisis calls and other estimates and all these different handling customer complaints and employee issues without focusing on the estimate. So and by the way, within 6 months, his work week dropped from 70 hours to 40. His profit increased by 85%. His employee turnover dropped to 0. His customer satisfaction scores hit all-time highs. And most importantly, he hasn't missed a single one of the kids' games this season. So
he's on the sidelines cheering on, right? Yeah, you got him on the sidelines. I was saying he's on the sidelines cheering on, right? I mean,
that's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. And so let me circle back on that time freedom formula I promised to share with you. This is the framework that ties everything that we've talked about together. It's based on what I call the 4 zones of freedom. And here's exactly how that time freedom formula works. Zone 1 is the foundation zone. This is where you document everything you do. I mean, everything. Create systems, processes, procedures for every recurring task in your business. And yes, it takes time up front, but it's like laying a foundation of a house. Do it right, and everything else becomes possible.
Exactly.
Zone 2, the multiplication zone. This is where you multiply your time through people and technology. For every task, you ask yourself, can this be automated? Can this be delegated? Can this be canceled? That's it. This is essentially AIDCO. Zone 3, the liberation zone. This is where you create what I call time freedom triggers, specific points in your business where you step back and you let systems and the team take over. For example, when revenue hits X, you stop doing estimates. When profits hit Y, you hire an operations manager. When systems are documented, you reduce your hours to 40 hours per week. Zone 4 is the leverage zone. This is where the magic happens, because in this zone, you're only doing things that only you can do, that you love to do, that generate the highest return on your time, that move your business forward strategically. So the formula works like this. This time spent in zone 1 creates freedom in zone 2. Success in zone 2 enables zone 3. And then at zone 3, catapults you to zone 4. So remember Bob, the contractor, using this formula, he spent 90 days in zone 1 documenting everything. He used zone 2 to train his team and implement systems. He activated zone 3 by gradually stepping back from daily operations, and now operates in zone 4, focusing on only high-level strategy and growth. The key is to move through the zone systematically, and most business owners try to jump straight to zone 4 without building the foundation. That's like trying to put the roof on the house before you built the walls. So that is pretty much the end of my strategies today for time management, time freedom, I should say, that more time freedom. You run your business better, it will result in time freedom. And so now it's time for compliments.
Yes, Michael, really energized by our segment on business compliments. So there are a number of business owners coast to coast that we want to spotlight. We'll start with Jay Miller. She's a financial planner based in Florida, Michael, and she's affiliated with Haven Partners Group, HPG Holdings. Get this, her focus is building wealth is about moving the needle and making measurable progress. That's her mindset, to your point. And her headline and mission statement as part of that mindset is to focus on this hashtag needle mover. How about that? If you need a catalyst for creating a prosperous environment, or you just need a go-to financial consultant, touch base with Jay. And you can find her on
That's
LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Again, Jay Miller, spelled Jaye. Second spotlight, Ann Austin. Ann Austin, she is a certified financial advisor with Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated. She's based in Georgia. Michael, get this for her headline statement. She is a financial professional serving her community in retirement, college, and estate planning. Very focused on those three pillars.
Yeah.
You can find out more about Ann, raymondjames.com/Ann Austin. The third spotlight is on Lori Rogers. Lori Rogers, she is with Keller Williams Main Line. She works relentlessly for her clients. She's got extensive knowledge in the real estate market, really throughout the Philadelphia and greater Philadelphia area. And she really tries to keep the process fun for her clients. That's one of the things that clients love about working with Lori. You can find out more about her at lrhomes.com. So effectively, L for Lori, R for Rogers, homes.com. The next business owner to spotlight, Frank Skirbo. Frank is a leader with Serve First Solutions based in Massachusetts. They are a nationwide payment solutions firm assisting small to mid-sized businesses with a focus on verticals specific to the B2B sector. And I like this leadership tagline from Frank. I have the cure for high credit card processing fees, full stop. Right? You can find out more information about Frank at serve-first.com. So that's serve-first.com. And then last business owner spotlight in today's segment is Jason Fiala. Jason is the president of Premium Termite and Pest Control based in California. They serve all of SoCal, so from the greater San Diego area and beyond. And I really like this focus. So their focus is to provide amazingly fast turnaround on termite reports for escrow purposes. And even better than that, they're very committed to providing amazing care, compassion, Michael, and customer service. So they combine compassion with customer service. So with that, I'll pass it back over to you. Those are the compliments for the week.
Thank you, Chucky. So, the great paradox of business success is the less dependent your business is on you, the more successful it becomes. And the less you try to control everything, the more control you actually have. The more you let go, the more your business grows.
Great point.
And so to get a copy of the book, Powerful Business Strategy, simply go to our website, www.nextstepcfo.net. It's totally complimentary. And until next Monday at noon Eastern Time, for Chucky Obio, my name is Michael Barbarita. And remember, don't keep doing what your competition is doing.
You have been listening to Powerful Business Strategies, finding out that everything you ever learned about growing your business is wrong. Tune in next week and every week at noon Eastern Time on W4CY Radio with your host, Michael Barbarita of Next Step CFO and moderator Chucky Obio.